righty.
Let's rip, dude.
Let's rip.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Cool.
Yeah,
So,
good to see you again.
Doug,
Yes.
I've been wanting to get you on since I started this podcast. You were one of the first people I wanted to get on. I've gotten to know you over... You were one of our original customers with Plunge. You reached out early 2021, asking about the plunges. You wanted to get a couple units. The moment I met you, I was like, this guy's got energy.
Yeah.
I was like, didn't know you were... You mentioned you were a Wim Hof instructor, but I had no context to your story. And over time, I've gotten to know it a little bit more. And I think it's one of the... And I'm excited to dig in more here, but it's one of the most like touching, inspirational, and like just inspiring stories. And that's who you are. And you to me are like the epitome of health. You know, I know you do your miles in ocean swims. You did the Alcatraz swim recently. You're doing 300-pound deadlifts on a drop of notice. You'll drop into full frontal splits. And not that age is ever a thing, but you're 68 years old.
Oh, that's a thing.
And that's what's the gravitational pull to you is you just break down every like stereotype that could be there. And you just, you are what's possible. And I think it's one of the most incredible things. I feel more energized when I'm around you, and I'm half your age, and it's, you know, that is who you are, and that's what you create in this world. And I just acknowledge it and thank you for being who you are.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the compliments, and motivating and inspiring people has really basically turned into my purpose. And it almost, I was joking with you earlier, it's almost like the story is so amazing. It was almost like God said, Doug, I know you're hard of hearing, so I'm going to have to speak up here.
And I don't want to get into that when you got that message and when that was. First, to give a little context to everyone listening, is like, you know, you are super successful in your career as, you know, arguably the top real estate broker down in central Monterey region, you know, family man, 2 beautiful children, wife. You're also a Wim Hof instructor. Right. Level 2, from my understanding, there's not many people. How many?
I think there's like 10 in the U.S.
10 in the U.S. So Wim Hof instructor. Let's start there. First, who is Wim Hof?
Wow. Wim Hof is this amazing guy. He's Dutch, and he's like he's very difficult to explain, but he's an amazingly charismatic, unaffected, incredibly focused man, and has an amazing story himself. And he 30 some years ago, he had 4 little kids playing on the living room of their 8th story apartment. And his wife, who in those days they said she was moody, actually today they call it manic, jumped out the window. And it just took him to his knees. And he said, you know, I wanted to jump after her. I mean, I was in so much pain, but I had these 4 little kids. I couldn't, but you know, I can't drink. I can't take drugs. I don't, you know, I gotta fix this. And it sent him on this mission, searching the world to be able to control his mind and his body. And they have rewritten medical science since 2014 based on this protocol. It's truly, truly amazing. But what he went through to get there is a full Rocky story. I mean, that guy, he endured all kinds of social torture, and he didn't care. He just went, and he's a hero in my mind, although I know he's very uncomfortable with that. Because he's just such a regular guy. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's not much regular about Wim, but he's just a very humble person, and very approachable. As a matter of fact, one of my roles when he goes on tour and I'm with him is to keep him protected, because he wants to talk to everybody. he'd skip the whole 1,000-person workshop and just go talk to everybody. Because he's just such a friendly, he's like a giant puppy dog, but brilliant, amazing focused guy.
And what is the Wim Hof method? I mean, it's Wim as this individual, but what did he bring to the world?
Yeah, so it's just a fascinating thing, and I'll try and keep as close to center as possible. But basically, it's a protocol of deep breathing, mindset focus, and exposure to cold. And what this does, and so the purpose of this, and what this essentially does, is it stresses your autonomic nervous system, which is everything that works without thinking: respiratory, circulatory, nervous, and endocrine, hormones and enzymes. And if you think about it, it's just an amazing, and I didn't know any of this stuff at all. I never heard of Wim Hof when I kind of had my big adventure, but every cell in your body gets its energy from one place: oxygen. And people say, well, what about food? And what about all this? What are you talking about? You don't live on oxygen. Well, you have kidney cells and liver cells and blood cells, and all those things support the process of the rest of your universe, which is what I call your body. But cells don't eat sausages. I mean, they live on oxygen. And so there's dozens, hundreds, thousands of breathing protocols for different things but this particular protocol is to oxygenate and energize your cells. And if they're not getting that, then they're burdened. And so the way I describe it is, let's say you got sick or broke your leg or something, you had to lay on the couch for a month. When you stood up, you'd be so weak you could hardly stand up. And you're not going to reach down and grab 25-pound dumbbells. You fall over, pass out or something. So you walk around the couch once and fall over and feel like you just ran a marathon. But the next day, maybe a couple times around the couch. By the end of the week, maybe you're getting to the end of the driveway. When you stress your systems, they become stronger. Your body will adapt to unbelievable things, as Wim's proved. And what happens is our autonomic nervous system is laying on the couch, and it runs everything else. So to me, it's kind of why is this not front line? This is, everything works better when your autonomic nervous system is strong and healthy. And when it's not, everything's burdened. And like you said, I mean, people keep telling me I'm old or this. I mean, I got nothing. And I don't say it like, I'm so cool. But I'm absolutely stunned and amazed. I'm like, I cannot believe how healthy and vital I am. And it's, again, I have not missed work doing the Wim Hof process for 7 years. 7 years last week.
So what you're talking about is another term like hormesis.
Yeah.
It's like this stress, it's intentional stress. It's what we do when we work out.
Of course.
It's all the things that, the term, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Right.
There's a lot loaded into that statement. That statement. But yeah, I mean, in the Wim Hof method, he talks about breath. Right. That is the one input that we can control within our system. Right. Everything else, we're kind of, there's a lot of other factors there, but what is the one thing? And it's how we intake that breath. And the Wim Hof method, kind of break that down to, you talked about 3 different areas to it. It's breath, mindset, focus, and cold exposure. Yeah. On the breath, what are the key attributes to, we all just breathe naturally. Like you said, it's our autonomic system. We do it. Thank God, we don't have to think about it. But there are ways to do it it's a different lever that we can pull at different moments to do different things to our body. What is specific about this breath style?
Well, so how it works is the autonomic nervous system is respiratory, circulatory, nervous, and endocrine. So when you take a breath, you breathe through the respiratory, it gets delivered to the circulatory via the nervous system, says, okay, send that to the cells, and then your endocrine system balances everything out. Well, those are 4 really distinct functions. but only one system. Because if you're not breathing, the rest of them don't do you any good. If you don't, your circulatory is not working, you're out, right? Same with nervous and endocrine. So those are such distinct functions, but a single system. And you have no control over any of them with one exception. You can always override your breath. And so what happens is when you breathe, you deliver right now you're breathing about 0.5% carbon dioxide, mostly oxygen and some nitrogen. So what happens, you breathe that in and it gets delivered to your circulatory, but that's it. Like if you put one of those little meters on the end of your finger and just go, you'll watch your oxygen level come up to 100. But that's in your blood. It's not in your cells. So what happens is when it gets delivered to your cell, the little mitochondria, remember that powerhouse of the cells? Do you remember that from science class? Okay, so it gets delivered. The mitochondria, one of their many jobs is to take that carbon dioxide like a key to the oxygen and unlock the energy, converts it from oxygen to energy, and then dispel the carbon dioxide. So oxygen in, carbon dioxide out, right? So what happens is in this particular protocol, if you breathe, your oxygen's going out, but you're blowing out all the carbon dioxide. So at the end of that process, 30, 40 breaths, whatever it is, depending, and we won't even get into too much of that because it could go on for days. But on the last breath, there's a retention. So it's like a hack. So you've oxygenated your blood, but your carbon dioxide's gone, or you've blown out most of it. So you hold, there's a retention. And as you're retaining that, your carbon dioxide builds up. So now, I joke, I call it super sauce. So now you've got this super high oxygen, super high carbon dioxide, and you've got this, and so you take it with a big breath, and you can feel it. And I don't know if you remember that.
Totally. It's electrical charge. It activates your whole body.
Absolutely. And so you're just jamming oxygen and it's converting that to energy. And you're like, wow. And after 3 or 4 rounds of that, you're in the flow state, your pH goes up. And we did a little bit of that. But pH, if you've read the book Breath, which is a fascinating book, everybody should read that. 7.4 and above is when all the good stuff happens. Cell regeneration, flow state, all that. So we can get you there in less than 30 minutes with this whole process in the Wim Hof method. And
so Wim took this method. You were talking about the ridicule that he took. For everyone listening, Wim was ostracized. He did feats that no man has ever done on this planet.
Crazy
and it is
stuff.
Completely controlling. I mean, give me your top 2 to 3 events that Wim did in a quick, concise way of what he did on this planet.
Okay. So meter thick ice on a lake in Finland, right? That's really chilly. Big hole. He comes parading out barefoot in his bathing suit. Hop in and see how long you can hold your breath under that ice. 6.5 minutes.
I have a cold plunge here and I get in at 48 degrees for 3 minutes and I'm charged and I feel like Superman.
No,
this is a whole other level.
Oh, it's like a polar bear. But he's really, really, and it's so true because, I remember when I first started cold showers, of course, I had been laying on the couch for months, unfortunately, but I took my breath away and it was, and the first time I actually got in a tub, it was 57 degrees, about the temperature of the ocean for 3 minutes. And I was worried about passing out. Now, I swam Alcatraz, it's the same, it was 50 degrees February, yawn, but my systems have been laying on the couch.
Totally. You've built that system up over time and you've strengthened it. And it's just 100%. Like going to the gym, your muscles.
Absolutely.
They take time.
But here's the thing. When that system works really well, when you're working out, all your cells are oxygenated. They're functioning. They're repairing. They're regenerating. Everything works better. So you have to do less to get more.
Yeah.
And that's just your muscles and bones, because that's the easiest thing for most of us to, relate to. Is working out means running or lifting weights or whatever it is.
Yep.
But that's just one system in your whole body.
And so Wim, he had that's 1 feat right there. He's Everest in his underwear, correct?
Yes, yeah. Everest. He also took the shortest group, and he's really big into this, because he's like, no, I don't want to be the star here. I want to show people the method is the star, not me. And he took the shortest amount of time up Everest, shorts and shoes, to not Everest, I'm sorry, Kilimanjaro. Yeah, Kilimanjaro. 34 hours. That's a 6-day trip. Just walked right up.
So we had that one. And then the big medical breakthrough was when he took the group, I believe it was a study in the Netherlands.
Right on, yes.
And break down what happened there.
Well, so what he did is he gets accused of him being this amazing anomaly all the time. Now, it's hard for me not to think that he is a little bit different, but I'm living proof that, you can do it.
Yeah.
And so he said, no, it's not me. I can train anybody. So they didn't haul him because they'd never let you do it here. But he trained 12 guys for 4 days only. And deep breathing, mindset focus, cold, jumping in the icy rivers. Took him into the hospital, double blind, 24 people, and they injected them all with an E. coli endotoxin. And all 12 of his guys walked out that day.
Didn't express symptoms within that?
They had some mild symptoms, but I've had E. coli. I almost...
Of course.
Oh my God.
And the other 12, obviously double blind, knew very quickly who had it, who...
Oh yeah.
So they...
Not pretty.
Not pretty.
Not pretty.
And that was the breakthrough, right? That was the validation that he got in the clinical setting.
Yes.
That I'm not unique. This is possible.
Right.
We're in control. It was a human breakthrough. It was 100%. A breakthrough into our body of what we knew, what we could do, and what we're capable of, and starting to understand, like you said, like what adrenaline is in our body, and what are these levers that we actually are in control over. With the autonomic system, like you said, it's an unknown piece, but we have tools to adjust that system.
And they said you didn't. Now that they had to throw in the towel, and it's like, yeah, you do. Yeah.
So that's a bit background on Wim. Everyone here, there's so much we can go into on Wim.
Oh yeah, it's just an amazing thing. Just Google him. It's really fun and immensely entertaining.
100%.
Oh yeah, but some of the stuff, and then all the people I have met. Obviously, myself is my most important case to me but I've met people that have cured themselves from Lyme disease, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis that looked like a flesh-eating disease. I mean, it was really bad stuff. Now, it's important. See, for me, people call me up all the time and they say, hey, I've got this or that. Will Wim Hof fix that? Well, your body's a universe. And all Wim Hof method does is stresses the systems that make your universe run well. So I don't know. It's always my answer. It's not like, I drank some Kool-Aid and Wim Hof fixes everything, but I can tell you that unless you have some mitigating circumstance, that the Wim Hof disease will absolutely help your universe run better and stronger. And so it wants to fix itself, and it has all the tools to do it. So
it reminds me of like fitness. It's like that question of like, who's some big fitness person out there? It's like, can they make me fit? It's like, they can't, but there's a blueprint to this.
Sure.
There's a clear path of, working out, stressing your body out correctly, eating healthy, doing these things, that can make you fit.
Great analogy.
Your autonomic system at your hair, Wim has given the blueprint, if we want to do it, to say this can really on a cellular level get us functioning at where we should be, where the body wants to be.
They've done so much science on it now. There's actually a case study that supports the fact that this actually thickens the cell walls. I mean, it's amazing. I think we're just barely scratching the surface. But yeah, absolutely. And this is the system that runs all that stuff. So
we'll link some of the notes to that, like the Wim's website in this. What I want to jump into now is, so this is your world. This is the Doug that I know. I'm sitting across this man that, you're inspiring on holistic health to me. But 7 years ago, this was not your life. And walk me through around 2014.
It was 2014.
2014. Where was your life at this time? Give us a quick background of what was going on in your world.
It was actually
not a quick. I want the full.
Okay.
Full piece.
Yeah. So I am a 60-year-old realtor. I had kids kind of late, so I had a daughter in elementary and a son in middle school. Just about the most regular guy. I mean, I'm not an Olympian. I mean, I always tried to keep myself in shape, but I mean, it's a 7-day-a-week job and, goes up and down and struggle with it like everybody. And my wife, who is also my real estate partner, was diagnosed with aggressive lymphoma. And that was extremely stressful. It was kind of like this shock, in the family. And it's like, how can it happen to me? So she's going through chemo, 6 months, once a month. And she's 4 months into it. And it's like, is mommy going to be okay? And, she had a wig on. I'm helping her shave her head. I was just so depressing. And scary, because the answer was, we don't know if mom's going to be okay. And she was a trooper, but there's no easy way through that one. Mm-hmm. And so my son, who shares everything with me, shared whooping cough that he brought home from middle school. And so, whooping cough in and of itself is just super annoying. It lasts for 3 months and you just cough for 3 months. But it could kill her because she's going through chemo. She has no immune system. So I lost like 15 pounds, super stressed, got this cough. I'm just worn out. I'm like doing everything in my power to hang on and, keep an attitude. And it was Easter 2014, and a friend of mine, Dr. Ron Guerin, said to me, Doug, I got to tell you, I've been doing this a long time, and, caretakers can oftentimes get as sick or sicker than the person they're taking care of, and you don't look good at all. And I said, well, I don't feel good. I got whooping cough. I'm exhausted, stressed out of my brain, and I'm just absolutely worn out. And he kind of says, okay, well, be careful. Mm-hmm. Well, that was the end of that conversation, and day went on. And the following Friday, he asked me to meet him at a house they owned. And, should I keep it or sell it or rent it, or just a real estate conversation. And I get out of the car, and he looks at me and kind of shakes his head and goes, oh, all right. And we're walking around, and I'm walking down these steps, and it wasn't a stumble. It was almost just like a little tweak. He said, what was that? And I said, oh, nothing wrong. I'm just worn out, man. I'm just frazzled. He looks at me, kind of squints, and says, well, come stand over here and, put your feet in like a sobriety test and stand on your toes. And when I stood on my toes, I had the slightest tremor. And he goes, you're going straight to the ER. I said, Ron, what are you talking about? I am not going to the ER. I'm going to the flower show. I'm meeting Grandpa in a half hour. I'm cutting roses. I'm going to the ER. I'm tired. And I got a whooping cough. Completely ignores me, gets in his car. I'll be there in 45 minutes, be there. Drives away. I'm like, oh, God. So I called my wife, told her what was up, went in there, and they said, why are you here? I said, Dr. Guerin told me to come here. And they say, okay, sign this and go sit over there, which I did. About an hour and a half later, a guy comes out with a clipboard, Steiny, Doug, and I stood up and fell on my face. And they put me in a wheelchair and said, you're not going anywhere. And that was at 5 o'clock on a Friday. So 8 o'clock, MRI. 11 o'clock, another MRI with dye, my blood. And 2:30 in the morning, spinal tap. By 5 o'clock the next morning, I'm completely paralyzed. I can't move. And so what had happened is my compromised immune system from the stress and the whooping cough were like a train wreck. And so my body short-circuited, and it's a rare autoimmune disorder called Guillain-Barré that subsequently, of course, I've met lots of people that have had it and with varying degrees of success. Mine was very aggressive, and so the next morning we have this meeting, and you can imagine, my wife comes in with a wig on and black circles under her eyes, and they don't really know, and so they say, well, we're going to try and stop it. There's no real cure. They kind of put you on it's more like a dialysis of hemoglobin and plasma, and hopefully sort of flush your white blood cells so they quit eating you alive. And it works sometimes, doesn't work. You never know. So they say, it's possible you won't make it.
Like won't make it, like you won't live.
Yes. Yeah. That's a fairly rare, but I've met lots of people that are not good 10, 15 years later. So they said, but if you have a 50-50 chance of permanent paralysis. But if you ever get better, it's a 1.5 to 2 years. So, I can't move my arms or my legs, and it's heading towards my organs, and then they trach you, and it's just
so you can talk. Was that?
I could talk. Yeah, I could talk, move my head, but not. It starts in your extremities and goes in. So the next step is, you can't breathe, and they trach you, and then it just see what happens. So it's ugly.
How's your wife during this? I mean, she's obviously
she's a tough cookie, but she would never let me know that she was terrified because she's just that way. But I think we're all like in shock because I was just, what do you think? I didn't even know what to think. But then it was really interesting because the kids had gone through so much with their mom, and my daughter, who was 9 at the time, they brought her in a couple days later because they didn't want to bring her right in because I literally had all these tubes in me and I couldn't move, and it was just ugly. And so they kind of processed her emotionally, and she came in, and you imagine this little round-faced, puffy-cheeked 9-year-old girl comes in and says, big tears in her eyes, "Oh my God, Daddy, are you going to be okay?" Sorry, this part always gets me. Yeah. But I said, "Yes, sweetheart, Daddy's going to be okay." And then she came over and she held my hand and she looked me straight in the eye with big tears, and she said, "But Daddy, you have to promise me, because I know you'll never break a promise to me." And I did. And interestingly enough, what I know now, that was the beginning of my journey. Because what happens is part of the training with the cold is the anticipation. It's your primal fear, is your sympathetic nervous system. And so what happens is God, I hope I'm going to be okay. I got to try hard. I can do it. And what if I'm not? All that, I never had that. It all went away at that moment. And I didn't realize, I didn't even know what it was. I think this sucks. I can't move. And people got to move me around and pick me up and, just everything that goes with that.
So there was no other option except healing was the path forward.
Right.
And there was no focus on how this could go wrong. It was completely
Yeah.
I'm going to get better.
Yeah. And I just had to write it out. That was what was in my head. And what happened was, after about a month or a little less than a month, they sent me home, and there's nothing you can do. I'm just laying there like a big lump. And just sitting laying on the couch in the middle of the living room, kids walking around. So dad's can't move, and we don't know what's going to happen. So then it went on for months, and about 3 or 4 months later, my 15-year-old son came bopping out of his room. They're fiddling around on the internet and looking at all things, and he like watching kids jump bikes and smash their heads and do all this stuff.
So I just want to jump. So it was a few months. So you were just laid up for a few months, like just.
Oh no! It was like, I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was at least 4 to 5 months.
And your kids, obviously Lisa, your wife's still going through.
Oh yeah.
Cancer treatments.
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
The kids are. Sure, running the household to a degree.
Yeah, she's driving herself to chemo.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, no, it was just so ugly. Yeah, and it's just like everybody's trying to, keep their chin up. But yeah.
So your son comes in.
Yeah, so he comes out and he goes, Dad, there's this guy, and he does all this stuff and his immune system, and all he knew is I had an autoimmune disorder, and he wanted me to get better. And he goes, yeah, he does all this stuff, and his immune system's so strong he can't get sick, which isn't exactly true, but it certainly strengthens it. And there's a whole medical world around, specifically what it can do. But the long and short of it, it certainly helps. And so he says, can you do that, Dad? Now, it's for anybody out there who is worried about this, it was a family joke how much I hated cold. I mean, it's like, don't even think about it. First off, I didn't understand cold at all. Cold was just cold, and I don't like to be cold, so why would I be cold? Well, now I know why, but at that time it was like, and so he comes out and he goes, yeah, let me show you, Dad. And it's Wim swimming around in the Arctic Circle in his underwears, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that, son. I mean, so he helped me get online, and I ordered the 10-week course, got it the next day, and I started breathing. And as soon as I started the breathing protocol, I knew that something was going on. I mean, I said, wow, because, I'd been laying there and all, it's just.
What'd you notice?
Oh, just same thing, same thing that probably you noticed, and people when they go through the workshop now, is it's all of a sudden it's like a euphoria almost. You're amazingly focused. You've got you're incredibly present. Only on steroids, because I'd just been laying there, not shallow breathing, and just everything that's just terrible for your brain and your body. And so all of a sudden, all those cells are getting energized and all that. And it was probably from a pretty low number. And so they had to help me get in the cold shower. And that was a process and all that. So we did it within no more than 3 months, because I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be sitting here explaining this journey. I was just trying to get better. Mm-hmm. I was symptom free. I was walking around like done. I'm like, I love this.
So did you breathe every day, multiple times a day? Multiple times a day.
Yes.
And then cold shower once a day.
At least. Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
And this was your kids and your wife just helping you get in there.
Yep.
Kind of roll you in, or?
Yeah. And then later I could go on crutches, and then, basically when I could move, I got better and better and better, and then just could do it myself.
I don't think I knew how quick you were able to transition from complete paralysis to symptom free.
Yeah. Good. Now it's pretty weak, just, but I mean, I didn't, have any paralysis anymore. I mean, I'd been laying on a couch for 6-8 months. So that's,
It's almost like you got like, I can't imagine, like you go from that, like at this point, you're just a believer. You're just like, not even a believer. It's like, this is gospel.
Well, so, for me, it's really interesting because I get so excited about it and I'm so pumped about it, but I'm not selling anything. I don't listen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what happened to me and all the thousands of people I've met now over doing tours and workshops and all that have these amazing results. And just go online and look at all the people that are telling Wim this happened and that happened. And then the biology and physiology of it. It's really simple. Mm-hmm. This runs all your systems, energizes your cells work better. And then there's a whole nother layer with the cold and all these other things that happen. And it just makes sense. I mean, it's not complicated. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it. I'll do it.
I think that's what's always drawn me to it's the Wim Hof method, and it's simple. It's like it's a very abstract and beautifully miraculous system we're talking about.
100%.
And it's broken down in the very simplest form of these levers do this thing, and this is the result.
Right.
And it's going to be unique to each person because our symptoms are just a byproduct of an imbalance inside. So the symptoms yours was an autoimmune disorder, someone else it shows up as psoriasis, like whatever the thing is. Yeah. Internally, it's the same exact thing. We just need to adjust.
Everybody's universe is different. So different people manifest it in different ways. But those systems are consistent in all humans. Mm-hmm. So when that system works better, everything works better. Mm-hmm. And it's really about as simple as that. So
you're healthy now. What happened in life at this moment? Were you like, I got to go meet Wim, I want to be a Wim Hof instructor? Or were you just kind of like, I'm getting back to life as a realtor and support my wife? And
100% back to work. I got to start paying bills and figuring this all out again and let people know I'm alive again. And, people like, yeah, did you hear about Doug? Yeah, that's too bad. Well, I'll go get another person. Yeah. So yeah, it was a really, really bad, dark, time. But, about, at the end of that year, Wim went on tour and he was in San Francisco.
It's 2014?
Yeah.
Okay.
2014. And that was also the year that they did the Raybow experiment, in Holland.
Which was the E. coli?
The E. coli, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And so he was really kind of starting to be and I said, well, I got to go tell this guy, I got to see him. He's right, in San Francisco. He's a couple hours away. I owe him. So I went up there and it was really interesting because there was probably 600 people there and everybody's trying to buy tickets and, it's a big deal. And I accidentally ran into this really pretty nice young lady who seemed to have some authority and whatever. And I said, hey, thanks for having this and blah, blah, blah. And, I wanted to let you know that, Wim really saved my life and blah, blah, blah. And it turned out to be Laura Hoff. Huh. And
just his daughter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a few minutes later, Wim was, hey, Dad, come over here and meet this guy and whatever. And Andrew Huberman was there. Huh. He was the co-speaker. And so, he says, Wim goes, oh, great, come tell this guy, tell him everything. I'm going to go get on stage or whatever. And so I did, and we chatted and hung out. He's a total stud. What an interesting guy he is.
Yeah. Dr. Andrew Huberman.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
He's incredible.
Yeah, that's an awesome podcast. It's a guy to follow.
Absolutely.
And so through a series of events, I got invited to dinner, I think kind of by accident, really. And
just kind of snuck in, got the...
Well, yeah, it was funny because Laura and I are very close. And I got invited by somebody who didn't really have the authority to invite me. They were there and they go, hey, why don't you come? Well, she's like, what is this guy doing here? And I said, hey, I'll leave or whatever. And she said, oh, well, no, never mind. And whatever. And now they're, like family. And it's kind of a funny story internally. But now I'm very close with all the family, and it's just a masterpiece, the whole thing, how the whole thing works, and their different personalities and who supports who. And
what was dinner like with Whit? Did you hang out with him that night, and kind of like, how did you guys hit it off? What was that conversation?
It was unbelievable, because there's probably 20 people at this dinner, and I got seated right next to him. And I'm like, what is happening here? And we started talking, and one thing led to another. And he said, you know what? We're going to break that record at Kilimanjaro, and I want you to go with us. And so I'm kind of like, and I said, yeah, I'm not a mountain climber. He goes, oh, you're the kind of guy. I know you can do it. And I said, well, I'm in. Let's go. I'll die trying.
Did you do it?
No, it was actually a total heartbreaker. I trained for 9 months, and I trained hard. Oh my gosh, running around with 50-pound packs of rock, running up and down the mountain like 20 times and all this stuff. And like 2-3 weeks before we were gonna go, it was a documentary they were filming, and they couldn't get insurance because of the guys who were filming and all that, so they canceled it. And oh God. But anyway, I was in really good shape.
It led you to that.
Yeah, and it was just, I don't know. It really, I felt just, part of the whole Wim Hof world, which, of course is, been quite a while now, and it's just a beautiful thing for me. I'm really, really lucky. But then I ended up doing all the training to become an instructor, because I said, this is perfect. And so I traveled all around and went to all the weekends and weeks and did all the stuff and got instructor certified. And then I started helping certify people with instructors, and then I became a level 2. And they did that video on me, and that really kind of changed things in the sense that, I had been sort of understanding my story more by that time, and all the amazing things that happened to me about how am I sitting in a bucket? I hate cold. What is happening here? And all these things that had happened on the journey, about all the things I learned, and about how important belonging in a tribe is, and how the energies work, and what happens when you breathe by yourself, and what happens when you breathe in a group, and all the things that, we talk about and go, yeah, really energy in the room. Just to be ruthlessly honest, 7 years and 1 month ago, if you said energy in the room, that's like an expression of, and it's voodoo. It's just a expression. It doesn't mean anything. There's no energy here. And now I just realize how sort of short-sighted and ignorant that was, and have learned how the energy in our bodies works, and how we interact as humans, and how incredibly important that is. And how much we depend on each other. And I actually pride myself in embracing the fact that not only do I need other people, but they need me, and that's what makes us all work. So,
yeah, I think something I've been talking about lately and more focusing on my life, but it's like your biggest challenge in your life became your purpose.
100%.
And it's, and you had the gift of your daughter in that moment to say, Dad promised me. And you had that whatever, that father-daughter relationship to shift you into cool, this is where I'm going. And she was like your angel that was given to you to even provide you a path forward in your purpose. And I think that's so huge if we can shift into getting the perception of whatever the hardest thing we're going through in life is arguably our purpose and fulfillment here on this planet. I had my accident in Thailand that put me on a whole trajectory into my life, into how do I heal my body, health and wellness, all the things that came out of that. Plunge is a company that was birthed out of COVID. Businesses were shut down. You had no income. It was cool, what am I going to do from this? And so I just think it's your story is like the epitome of that. It's like is hell. You went through hell.
Yeah.
You know, your family, your children dying, not knowing if their or children wondering if their parents are going to die, and all paralyzed, your wife having cancer. And now it's like tighter family unit than ever with you on like a path forward. And I just think it's like, I think it's the coolest thing if we can get there and see that challenge and shift into like, this is actually my calling in this life.
100%. Yeah. And that it absolutely happened. So I think about when the doctor told me, he said, Doug, you know, caretakers can get sicker, and how I just basically said, okay, well, thanks for the pat on the back, but I got to deal with this. Mm-hmm. And then 1 week later, when my daughter walked out of the hospital room, I had to ask the nurses to blow my nose and wipe my eyes because I couldn't. And, none of that registered for a long time. I'm like, I just went through this most amazing thing. And I just focused on it and meditated on it. I was like, there are so many lessons that I learned in there that completely changed everything about me and the way I think and feel. And the Wim Hof method, ironically, is basically the key to doing that without having to go through what maybe you went through or myself. Mm-hmm. So how that works is on the sympathetic, on the autonomic nervous system, right? Those four functions, all of them, you have no control over any of them except your breath. And that's where the magic happens. So when I give a workshop, it's 5 hours, but without exception, every single person that pulls in on that morning isn't thinking about anything but the 2 minutes of ice. Mm-hmm. Forget all the other stuff. What are you going to do? I'm going to sit in a bucket of ice. What about the other 4 hours and 58 minutes?
Yeah.
And so that is your sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight. I'm thinking ahead to keep you out of trouble. Well, the problem with that is, it doesn't know everything. And it's really difficult. So if you let that run you, instead of you running it, then you're, sort of basically reactive rather than proactive. And so what happens is you start looking, we're going to go on the ice in 20 minutes. Your mouth dries out a little bit, your heart rate goes up, your eyes dilate, and you get into the sympathetic mode. But what happens is when you get in there, mindset focus, deep breathing, mindset focus, exposure to cold, right? So you get in the cold and your sympathetic nervous system's trying to get you out of there. And you're like, right? Instead, you've now been trained and you know what to do. And it's explained to you what your body's going to go through. And it's going to shunt and it's going to feel uncomfortable. And you're going to do this. And here's how you breathe and all. So now you get in and you stay calm and you stay focused. Now you're training it instead of it training you. And every time you go into stress, control that stress and recover from that stress, you get stronger, just like lifting weights.
It's like the ice is the clear one that we all have that response to, but this is no different than a difficult conversation we need to step into. This is no difficult than someone screaming in our face.
All of those things.
Internally, it's the same thing. It's the same chemical. It's the same response in the system.
Right.
The external, the ice bath is just the projection of. It's kind of it's a safe, extreme environment to us to test this out.
Absolutely. So that's the part that essentially you can become the Arnold Schwarzenegger of your nervous system. The breathing tees you up for that. So when you do the breathing protocol, you raise your pH and create a focus and a body function that allows you to be open to that. It's a much clearer. So, the Wim Hof method it's almost like kryptonite for anxiety and depression. And how that works is is if you're not breathing right, which 99% of the population isn't, because for you to breathe properly, you want to have your body cavity aligned over your pelvic bowl. And as soon as you do that, sit down, it's hard. You can't really belly breathe. I mean,
like positions we're in now is going to have this impact on our breath.
Right. The problem, you're driving and computers and sitting and desks. We do that so much that we've trained ourselves to breathe in our chest. And so if your circulatory system isn't getting what it needs to convert oxygen to energy, that system, it's a miracle, right? It just balances us all out. So the nervous system says, hey, endocrine system, respiratory is not giving circulatory what it needs, so shoot me a little cortisol, cortisol mostly for guys, adrenaline for women, and all the other hormones and enzymes that balance that all out. And you feel fine, and you're performing, and but it's not free. Because what happens is when the nervous system has to do that, it's saying, I'm going to do that, but I don't like it. So I'm going to create a situation where you're going to not want to do this. And that's anxiety. So you go, I'm feeling kind of anxious, and you have anxiety long enough, it could swoop into depression and kind of dip in and out of that, of overwhelm, because I feel like God, what is the matter? And it's so subtle, and so many people, virtually our whole society, has a low-level anxiety minimum. 50% of adult women in the United States today have adrenal fatigue. 50%. And that will make you sick eventually.
And what is that? Is that basically overcompensation of that system?
Yes, right.
Spit out the adrenaline. We're operating with way too much adrenaline, or more than we need.
Yep. And so what happens is like, imagine somebody, they're like upset or whatever, and they're like, and they're shallow breathing, and they're and all of a sudden, like a big sigh. That's an autonomic reaction, right? It's not like they're going, oh, I think I'm kind of anxious. I'm going to sigh now. If they knew what they were doing, they would say, I need to breathe. But that's what your body's, come on, breathe. So what happens is when you do the breathing and you raise your pH and you energize those cells, all of a sudden that anxiety, that low-level anxiety that's been going on for probably most of your adult life, it feels so strange that people think they're like, God, it's kind of like I'm high on something or whatever. And I'm saying, okay, so in other words, you don't feel really present. You're just sort of, no, it's opposite. It's like, I feel 100% present, and the world is out there. It's gone. It's like, it's not active. That's because for people to be present and to be mindful and to be here today is so unusual that it feels like there's something wrong.
And that's the state that's our homeostasis.
100%. Right. Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Just from breathing. Really, all it is Wim created, and he did it all by plagiarism and trial and error and all those things. I mean, he freely admits it. I tried everything until I figured it out. All it is a protocol to strengthen and activate those systems. That's it. That's the whole thing.
With that, where would you send someone to start right now? Like, someone listening, got it, I heard the message, your story's incredible, I want to incorporate this into my life. What would be?
So there's a few different ways, depending on who and where you are. I'm really a big proponent of on being with other people, and that's almost a whole nother story. But you can get his 10-week course. Just go online. It's a couple $100 or something. That's what I did. Since then, of course, anybody that knows anything about Wim Hof or anything, I want to talk to him. I want to learn from him. I read all his stuff. It's just so interesting to me. And
I always think the Vice documentary from 2015. I always think that's a great intro to who he is.
Spectacular, yeah.
If you haven't got enough inspiration already from this talk here in Doug, that's a good start. But yeah, I mean, like you said, his course or even his app. I think his app's.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, you have to be. So what I think is that we're tribal, and I think the more support you can get from another person, the better. And so if it's the app's the app, so you know how to do it, but you're on your own. The video is Wim's kind of in the room with you on a Zoom call, and you're watching. That has more of an impact. When you hook up with a Wim Hof instructor, such as myself, and you know because you have done the workshop, it's hilarious. I mean, I don't know if you saw that Gwyneth Paltrow.
Keep that right in front of you.
I don't know if you saw the Gwyneth Paltrow Goop Lab Netflix thing, but one of the ladies in there, after she did the Wim Hof method, she was an anxiety mess, and she was feeling so freaking good and centered. My favorite Wim Hof quote is, she kind of looks and how do you feel? She looks and she pauses for a second. She says, this is next level shit. And so when you can get people around you and actually do it together, and I highly recommend doing the journey with another person.
Yeah.
Because we really do depend on each other.
And I know that's something I've gotten to know you. It's like you're approaching mastery with this. Uh-huh. But you have a partner that shows up every morning at 5:45 at your house, and that's your schedule, and it works. And he's there every morning, and you guys do it together because we naturally find ways out of things. Like discomfort is what's naturally pulled to us, and so it's him showing up every morning. I'm assuming gets you out of bed,
and vice versa. Yeah. So I was in Colorado training about 5 years ago, and a friend of mine now, who Japanese guy. Have you ever seen the documentary Happy?
I'm aware of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, he was a Japanese businessman, and he said, 2 BMWs in the carport, everything he owns is Armani, big penthouse, and he's just, and they have that social disease where they work themselves to death, and he's like one of those guys. And so he's going into the office one morning on a train through this long sweeping curve into a tunnel like they did every morning. And this particular morning, he had to stand next to a homeless guy, and he was indignant because in his mind, there should be cars for people like him and then cars for homeless people, because that's sort of how their society worked. And as they're going along through this sweeping tunnel, click, 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 the homeless guy was so weak, he fell into him. And NJ was just furious. And as he's screaming and yelling at this homeless guy, he said he was sort of in a rage. A face jumped out from behind the homeless guy and attacked him with such fury and speed that before he could even get past the homeless guy, it knocked him backwards and took his breath away. And what had happened is when they went into the tunnel, the windows became mirrors, and it was his own face. And he had a moment like I did when I promised my daughter. His life changed instantly in that moment. And he was so stunned, he didn't really know what to do. So he went through about a week of, maybe I'll do this or that, or I'll meditate, or I won't work so much, or whatever. He goes, you know what? I'm quitting my job. This is all wrong. This is just, we're starting over. And he completely reorganized his life. And he spent the next 6.5, 7 years doing, which at the time was, and I think still is, the largest research project in history on happiness.
Wow.
And so what they found was that you're responsible for your own happiness, just like you are for your mental health, physical health, spiritual health. Nobody...
They found that that's like someone that takes responsibility for their happiness has the most, like they're the ones that lead to happiness. Is that?
Yeah.
Got it.
Right. I mean, it's just, if you, where the focus goes, the energy flows. And if you just ignore it, like I ignored, my doctor friend, I'm fine. Okay, well, then keep going and see what happens, right? And when I embraced the fact that I need other people, instead of turned from it, everything changed. But what they found in this research project was that the most powerful thing you can do for another person is for yourself, to make yourself happy, is to help another person. So on that note, now he told me this and I said, that makes sense. And as I processed that, what I realized is what that means is that by not reaching out to you, I'm not being a good friend because I'm stealing your joy.
You're not allowing me to help you.
It's a one-way deal. And so like, I'll make this up. Let's say phone rings and, hey, Ryan, it's Doug. Gosh, I'm right down the street. I just got a call. My son was in an accident, but I have my dog with me. Can you take my dog? I don't know if I'll be back. I don't know what's going to happen. It could be a few days or whatever. I don't know, but you got to take my dog right now. Now you may be allergic to dog, hate dogs, leave in town tomorrow, but I can almost be assured that you would say, just bring it over. I got you. And not only would you do that, but you would feel honored that your friend Doug would reach and say, I need you and I trust you and you're that much of a friend that I can lean on you.
100%.
And so when you think about that, and so when you're like my friend that I breathe with every morning, that sympathetic nervous system, the one that starts talking to you the day before, it's going to tell you, don't get up, do it. You can maybe do it this afternoon, skip it this morning, blah, 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 rationalize. I don't do that, but I understand that. I understand that's going to come up. So I embrace my relationship with this dear friend and we support each other and we don't miss stuff.
It's like really getting to the crux of like, you talk about tribe, you talk about community. It's like, that guy's an extension of you.
100%.
It's like you really, the separation that we naturally create with not being, I'm not going to I got this on my own.
Right.
It's like, first, it's like you could look at it from you're selling yourself short. Like what you can achieve by yourself is so much less than with other people involved. And it's just not understanding human nature. Like there will be a breakdown that comes.
So if you have a party with 20 people and it's catered and there's some guy serving everything and everybody else at home go, oh gosh. Or you say, hey, we're going to 20 people. Why don't you bring a salad? I'm going to ask Sally to bring some bread and Bill's going to bring this. And everybody is participating. And the food's just as good, if not better, whatever. But everybody's a part of it. Which part do you think is going to be more connected? Which party is going to be more intimate? It's now I'm a friend. I'm not a guest.
I'm a part of this.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And that whole concept is all so integrated into all these things that we learn. Like, who would ever say, well, okay, first we're going to, okay, guys, okay, coach, what are we going to do? First, we're going to start stressing our autonomic nervous system, and then we're going to go into some, team building. And you're like, huh? I mean, I grew up old-fashioned as no pain, no gain, and all. It's just the stupidest thing ever. It's just completely opposite of how everything works. And I don't know who invented all that, but they're an idiot.
Well, we're going to go through it tomorrow. You're coming in to do the workshop with the plunge crew.
I'm so excited. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm so excited because without fail, every single time there will be dozens of people's lives changed in there for the better. Yeah, it is such a rewarding experience that I get to share that with other people. And I just, it's like my lifeblood. It's really awesome.
I've been to your workshops and they've been back-to-back days, and I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
So many people with so many different, coming in at different points of their journey and the things they've taken away, and it's an incredible experience. So when that happened to me, I knew we had to get you guys up for our team.
Yeah.
Couple random questions I always like to ask.
Sure.
First, appreciate everything you shared today, and it just touches me every time I learn more about your story. But what's something you believe that's not commonly accepted?
Well, I would, the reason I explained how we work as people is because that's completely counterintuitive to anything you're going to learn about how to be successful. You've got to get stronger and faster and better and more independent, and you've got to be more and more. That's just not true. So, but you did hit on it, is that the reality is the closer you are to more people, the more friends you have, the more powerful you are.
That reminds me of the quote. It's like, go fast, go alone, go far, go together. And it's like,
right.
From a business standpoint, which is a big part of my identity, it's like very clear on that. It's like, how effectively can I build this tribe?
Right.
And that is like, in the fulfillment of just understanding human mechanisms, I totally get what you're saying of like, community is what drives us.
Yeah.
We're coming out of 2 years of, probably the most issues we've seen on mental health and everything that's come through. Why is that? We've separated ourselves, we've isolated ourselves, and it's like, it's the core of who we are, is like to be with humans.
Yeah, it's like absolute social torture. Rebreathing carbon dioxide with those masks on and isolating. That is just a recipe for absolute insanity. It's the worst possible thing.
Hopefully we learn from that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm good with that, but getting the message out is a little different. But
what, any books? What would be a book you would recommend?
Breath. Gotta read Breath.
Okay. James Nestor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the sort of the go-to right now. And then there's another book that I actually keep 5 or 10 copies of all the time. And I can see her face, and I can't remember her name right now. She's a Stanford gal, called Radical Remission.
Huh.
Fascinating book. And she was a PhD, worked in the oncology business, industry, but she wasn't an oncologist. And so I don't know exactly what that, I think she's a researcher. And so, you would get people that would come in and make friends with them and whatever. And every now and then, they'd say, hey, look, go home, get your stuff in order because we can't help you anymore. And so she had a client, patient, whatever, that happened to. And this particular one, she'd become very fond of and close to, and it was really affected her. And so she left, and she, of course, never going to see her again. And about a year later, she comes back into the oncology center to get some papers filled out or some version. And she's like, what? And she, oh my God, I thought you died, blah, blah, blah. And she said, no, I'm cancer free. And she said, well, that's amazing. And she ran around and told all the doctors, oh my God, Sally's back and she's this and that. Whoa. We don't want you to say anything about that because we've seen spontaneous remission, but it's very rare. And we don't want to give all these people false hopes. And she said, well, what are you talking about? False hopes. That's what you want is hope. And she asked the lady, she said, well, what did you do? How did this happen? And she said, that's interesting. You're the first person that's asked me that here. And at that moment, that was her aha. That's like medical malpractice. That is just, how can you not want to know that? Mm-hmm. And so that became her life. And so she did, I believe it was 1,000 interviews with people that had spontaneous remission. And almost without exception, nobody had ever asked them. So what she did is she sort of grouped it all into 9 different things that people did that were common in at least one of them was common in all 1,000 people. So in other words, here's these 9 things: diet, meditation, etc. And every one of these 1,000 people has between 1 and 9. Not the same for everybody, but one of these things. And 2 of them are physical, and 7 of them are emotional and spiritual. And so I'll let you read the book, but it's just fascinating. And it goes to all this stuff we're talking about. It's like how your mind, I mean, if you think about it, what made me sick is the same thing that cured me. My mind. I had a lot of help getting sick and getting better. But now that I, have processed this whole, journey, it's amazing. Yeah.
Radical remission.
Yeah.
Haven't heard of that one. It's a great one. Where can people find you if they ever want to connect with you, or what are you up to?
Doug Steiny, Steiny. Google me. Mostly it'll be real estate. But my phone number's all over the internet, and there's more and more Wim Hof stuff.
Cool. Do you have a site for your workshops of where they're at? Or?
No, actually, my daughter's building that right now.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Cool.
That should be up in about 30 days.
Doug, thanks for sharing your story. It moves me every single time. You're an inspiration. I love how you view it too, that you're just like, you freely give your story away in that, because it's not yours to, it's yours to share.
Yeah. It's not my story. I feel like I gotta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my pleasure. Good to be here with you today.
Right on, man. Well, appreciate everyone listening. Signing out.
Take care.